In a few words, and as an introduction, my name is Sébastien Ferry. I'm an Associate Director at Finnegan, which is a consulting firm for technology and regulation transformation. I'm in charge of all the themes around digital, customer journeys, and innovation. I've been accompanying our clients for the past 10 years on the issues with digital trust, especially in the finance sector. Based on this experience, we have the conviction today that we're going to be sharing with you that the wallets and the ecosystems will be the conclusion of all the development in digital trust, because the end of supporting documents for the benefit of sharing structured and certified data under the control of users. They also make up probably the major evolution of all the customer and employee journeys and all underlying processes in the years to come. So companies today have 3 years to prepare to the arrival of these new uses, which are the object of today's roundtable. So it is my pleasure to welcome for these exchanges Ugo Mania. You have joined the Industrial and Technology of ANSSI for digital trust and also relationship with industrial players. As part of that, you have been in charge of the PAVID reference, as well as the wallet, as well as the follow-up of technical work at European scale on DI Wallet in 22. And since January 24, you've been appointed Industrial Orientation Coordinator, and you've been formalizing the industrial policy of ANSSI to promote development of trusted solutions with your partners, whether in France or in Europe. Nothing to add to that. Romain Santini, good morning. You represent DocaPost, so you're in charge, program leader on digital identity and ADAS version 2, and you actually in the division of digital identity of services, which also talks about the digital identity offer of La Poste for service supplies, and also ID 360, which orchestrates your services around identity. And Eric van Zuren, you have many years of experience in terms of governance, risk, and compliance, as well as all topics connected to trusted ecosystems. You worked with the public sector and several European countries and a number of companies in the private sector on themes of archiving, architecture and security, on the implementation of IDAS and the European digital identity wallet. And I have an identity crisis because I've got a Dutch passport. I've been a resident in Belgium. I have a French diploma and unfortunately not a mobile driver's license from Germany. So I'm wondering which wallet I'm going to be using. You are the perfect use case to illustrate this exchange. So my first question for all three is very simply, before we get into the actual uses, what is this EUDI Wallet? We touched on that topic on the previous roundtable. In terms of context and in further details, Ugo, maybe, what are we talking about? Well, maybe to give you a context before I explain what the object is, the wallet comes from a European strategy steered by the EU Commission to equip 90% of European citizens with a digital identity. So relying on a regulation that is in existence, the IDAS regulation, and this regulation allowed to implement a European-wide framework on digital identity, making it possible, for a number of players to have them recognized at European scale. We have a representative here. We have some in the audience today, and the wallet is the next step. So there was a framework at European level, and there's a vision of that regulation to ensure that this wallet of digital identity, how it's going to be formalized is that in a mobile app with some elements of security, they can identify themselves for a number of private and public services, be able to sign documents with a legal value the same as a handwritten signature. And something that is new, the sharing of attributes, because a number of contexts we have to give your ID or reveal a number of information on the person to access service. That's, for example, renting a flat. You have to give an ID, 3 payslips, probably have some guarantors. So maybe in the future we'll have an attribute that says that you are paid over a certain amount to rent a flat without divulging too much attributes. And this is formalized into European regulations and obligations from several, the government to deliver at least one. Maybe, Eric, you want to complement that? On the international vision, you were talking in your introduction about interoperability, maybe? Well, yes. Roughly speaking, there was a digital identity in eIDAS V1, but the various countries have systems that are not interoperable. So if I want to access services in France that work in Belgium, or a Belgian citizen working in France, you can, using the eIDAS nodes, have a cross-border identification. However, when I get from Belgium to Holland, they're going to ask me, what is your Dutch number? Because your name is Eric van Worm, you were born in a certain place, but I don't have your social security number or other to connect with the cross-border files. So we have something to solve at that level, because otherwise the use cases will not work out. I have an identity, I can give my name cross-border, but that's where it stops. So the good thing is that we're trying to have something that is interoperable, but there's still something to solve. Is that how we're going to do the record matching or the identity matching cross-border? Romain, for Docker Post, what is this wallet for you? Well, for us, I'm not going to repeat what my neighbors have said. The principles of the wallet, for us, it's a tool that can be used for all European citizens, for everything, for dematerialized exchanges with private public sector, in the physical world as well, with the QR codes or contactless operations. And we can see it maybe like the end of what we had built with eIDAS V1. On the previous roundtable, the MP talked about an eIDAS V3, where eIDAS V2 as a transition regulation is probably true. What we are building is a kind of aggregator that doesn't reinvent the wheel, but rather relies on the bricks in the first version, like digital ID was already there, electronic signature was already there. The electronic attributes were not there, but there were some concepts that were close to that, sorry. And the idea was to gather all that and make it into a tool that will not be perfect in the first version, but that will be a great breakthrough and accelerator of dematerialization in our vision, and dematerialization that is properly done, secured, and a sign of trust for citizens to divulge data selectively. And just to conclude on this wallet object, which is what is important with us is that we're not on an atomic individual object that exists independently of its ecosystem. The wallet is a central element, and we'll be able to talk about it probably later. It interoperates with the whole trusted systems to feed it upstream, or also to see what the data produced downstream. And this is what represents the added value of our system for us. And we'll come back to that, actually, yes. So we did touch on that topic in the previous one, but we'll talk about the wallet specifically. It's very fascinating, exciting topic, but what could we just have a just talk about the various CONNEX topics, the implementation of its French version, the equivalents you can find in Europe. We talked about the reference architecture. You could talk about it. And this ecosystem is going to be articulated. Hugo, maybe you want to start? Well, to give you an idea of the schedule, to know when will IDIS v2 be implemented, because it's going to be a trigger for many things. So the text, the law should be implemented by late May 24, very soon. And then next, many things have been happening in parallel. The European Commission is relied on a number of experts for the technical work and putting on the market the wallets at European scale. And they've been working on what we call the framework reference architecture, and what we expect from the wallet. It's not perfect, but these are topics that we've been working on at European scale. This is a first track that's going to continue. It'll be the trigger of the secondary legislation. The IDAS regulation is very, very high level. So the number of execution axes, I'm not a lawyer, but it's a bit like decree in France. We have the CES system in French law. We're going to specify a law with decrees. Same thing, very high level European regulation, and we're going to specify some, and then some things that will be published, issued 6 months after. So by the end of this year, the ecosystems will be able to position itself, and we'll talk about to have more visibility on what is expected in terms of construction, and to talk about projects as such on the French ground is materialized into the fact that the European Commission has 2 other topics. There's an imposition of references to start build something, and launch also what large-scale pilot, which are projects financed to test some cross-border use cases, and France has positioned itself to lead one project with other member states, which is France the Secured Titles, Secured Deed Agency, and INCYBER. Actually, I can't talk on behalf of them, but we provide our technical expertise to support them in this context. Well, actually, yes, Romain, DocaPost is part to large-scale pilot. Well, yes, of course. Well, both in terms of the reference architecture framework that we talked about, and what we've been observing is that a principle of transparency from the European Commission, gradually making available some technical elements so the industrial sector can make it its own, which is favorably welcome. And we always want more information and updates that are more regular updates, but it's a true effort to accompany that with a technical framework to start projecting. And this is what we've observed through the large-scale project and potential, in which we work for ANTS to help them and support all the players. So it's 20 member states, 50 industrial partners on identifying the future relevant use cases, on reflections on interoperability principles, the technical bricks we need, the underlying subjects that we will need, so it works on a European scale, and with concrete aspects that are going to some tests of interoperability between the existing technical bricks that are developed in all industrial players and in the States. And what we've seen from LSP at this point is all the difficulties and the ambition of the IDAS wallet and IDAS v2 project. We are less than halfway on the time on LSP, so a lot has been made, but a lot remains to be done. And beyond the wallet, we mentioned the trusted ecosystem. So DocaPost sees that there is a challenge to benefit from that. Well, yes, in line with what I started to talk about, and we have this wallet object at the core of it, but around the wallet, we are going to have interacting entities. We have this supporting document suppliers. They're going to push data in the wallet. Hugo talked about some supporting documents for income or health, but are these documents given to the right person, and are they justified? When I pretend to have such a diploma, has the entity checked with the university that I actually have this? When I pretend to have such level of income, was that checked reliably? And then there are some specific players that are provided for by the regulation, who are trusted partners. They can be certified by the states and be audited. They can justify that they provide the level of trust that is required for this supporting document. And we go further with this wallet with the trust to those that accept the wallet, so that we record all the wallet acceptors, whether companies, small or large, so they declare why they want to rely on the wallet and what kind of data they're going to request, which is a strong guarantee for citizens when we talk about the entities in which they're interacting when using the wallet. And finally, to make it quick, on these user parts, there is also a challenge that we have to work together on IDAS, is how will these wallet users at the end of the chain can ensure that the data they receive are valid, keep some elements of proof. There's a whole system to be built on that. Eric, once again, if we were to take a step back to what is happening in Europe around the wallets, from your experience, are we making progress elsewhere, abroad? Well, it is making progress, but if we hear all the topics mentioned, it is a gigantic project with many countries, many other cultures, other understanding of what security is. So first of all, if we look at the very text of the regulation, it's a compromise between countries. So the interpretation of the definition of the very wallet, I'm not even sure that all countries have exactly the same understanding. Okay, we have a sentence that says it should be a certified wallet with personal identification data connected to the person and so on and so forth. But what does this mean exactly? Is that an authentication instrument, or is it a Regalian identity instrument? I don't know. As Hugo said, we are going to be writing the implementing acts, 6, 7 or 8 first implementing acts within 6 months, but we still have that is still to be done, and we have to agree on all the standards, and each country have got their own history. France has digital identity. In Belgium, you have a whole system that is already shared between the private and the public sectors by using It's Me in Belgium. In Holland, you have DigiDay. The Germans this weekend have put their own proposal of architecture on the web, and they're not compatible. So there's still a lot of work to be done in the next 12 months to agree on standards. And as you said in the introduction, I'm also a part-time cybersecurity professor at the Solvay Business Schools in Brussels, and I want to see the risk analysis. What does it mean, a high level of assurance wallet? What does this mean? Should the wallet itself include the French sovereign security system, or the software running on the mobile phone? How many European systems do we have running on mobile phones? We can go further. There are many standards, including those that were mentioned in the previous roundtable, that remain to be stabilized, to be fully compatible. But to come back fully, you have to look at, there is no the full comprehension of interoperability of European wallets. All the countries have got their own proposal, but there is work in progress. But the most important for us is that should see privacy by design, security by design. So we should have a whole list of security measures that should be implemented to protect citizens. Exactly. We'll come back to the concept you talked about the high level. Now that we've set the scene for what the wallet is and where we stand, the core of the topic, I would like to ask you, according to you, what are the uses that will allow us to promote this new life on mobile? So maybe start with Romain to start with. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I was saying that the wallet relies on many things that already existed in IDES V1 and using concepts that exist in states and public and private sector service providers. The first answer is that to look at what we have. Typically, we have in France, and we've had that for several years, a digital identity with La Poste. We have France Identité, which is coming soon, as well as Iris. So we have the digital identity use, which is the foundation of trust in dematerialized exchanges. And then we looked at what kind of solution we have, but we are the harbingers of what could be the use of wallets tomorrow. We have the app, I Prove My Age, that we talked about earlier, to secure access to only of people over 18 to adults-only websites for a real issue. And it's close to the wallet concept in transmitting the minimum set of data to answer. So we send a proof for majority. We don't know who sent it, and the solution is designed so we don't know who's sending it. When I also looked at what I've seen at DocaPost, we have a digital safe called DigiPost to manage payslips, for example, which is a harbinger of the storage space with information used as supporting documents in a number of contacts with a number of service providers. Now, these are bricks that are not what the wallet will be tomorrow. The wallet is to go further than that, and on this supporting document to go from a payslip with loads of information that doesn't concern the person you're sending it to, for income justification, to go from this to structured data that are interoperable and secured, and then there is no limitation to what the wallet can do. We can imagine for all kind of supporting documents in all areas, whether for legal entities, legal people, or physical people. Already exists for regulated professions, state and public sector, private sector. There's a whole field of play in terms of use. Then, of course, electronic signature. This is nothing new. There's a mature topic on this in France, but it's not developing because of a lack of a digital identity. And then if I extend that beyond the wallet, the IDES wallet, what we've been seeing that's quite interesting is that we have an IDES wallet that meets a very specific specifications that propose harmonized standards that are going to help players communicate with the wallet. And it opens the way for us for other uses, complementary uses of the wallet, a company wallet, for example, of a sectoral wallet, where the idea is not to have your own physical person wallet with my physical identity as a citizen personally, but potentially a company wallet to manage a physical access control, to access discounts for my works council, for example. So it opens up the field of play for services for the private sector, but within the European wallet technical context. Thank you. Eric, you already mentioned your atypical situation that opens up great ideas for use cases of the wallet. Maybe you have others that come to mind. And to prepare, you also mentioned a couple of ideas of uses that were not favorable to the wallet and that poses workaround situations that seem interesting? Well, first of all, I think that the EUDI Wallet is a fantastic dream that allows us to travel everywhere in Europe as the use cases tested in potential or digital credentials for Europe, or the European Wallet Consortium, or there are 4 consortiums that actually are currently testing that are in the public service world and private sectors. But when you look into the use cases, you see that 90% of there are many uses that are national local uses, and very few are cross-border ones. However, we have more and more physical people and companies, probably companies as well, but more and more physical people cross the borders. And in this case, if I live in Belgium, for example, I work in France, so therefore I must have a connection with Social Security. So I should have a bank account in France and a bank account in Belgium when I take a holiday in Spain. I may want to rent a car or a bicycle. And at the end of the day, the wallet will make it possible in a more secure way than it is being done today, because in the paper world, you can fraud. However, when I look at where we use it most in the world of physical people, it's either because I need a cross-border public service because I'm ill during my holidays, or I need to make a payment, or I work across the border, or I want to open a bank account cross-border, but also in the world of travels. For example, if I take in the future an Air France plane to go wherever, there may be the context of digital travel credentials that come into play in this context. But since just like I said, it's a dream, but the dream come a lot of responsibilities. So I'm wondering at the same time, but maybe it's for a later forum, how can we use the wallet in a criminal way to have access to your bank account, open an account under the name of another person, or go into a plane under the name of another person. The wallet, if we want to see all these use cases, must be really, really secure. Otherwise, we have major issues.
So that raises questions for the NC. Yeah, the NC, I think it's something. It's a cybersecurity agency here in France. So we're looking at a number of issues related to security. So to talk about wallet security, I just wanted to respond to what my colleague has just said. There's a real issue of digital transformation that Eric already talked about. It's very complicated. If tomorrow I go to the city hall with my digital credentials, it's not sure that the city hall will accept it. I mean, they want. So for each member state, the whole notion of this digital transformation is something that we have to look at. It's a real subject to see what we can do with digital wallets, and it's how we deploy this tool. This tool is something that has to be looked at not just at the national level, but also at the European level. I'm not sure. If we have the same security concerns and protocols for France as in the rest of Europe, so it's important that it really work throughout all of Europe, and we have a very, very short time frame. So There's a lot of questions about our ability also to put this into place while respecting all the security needs without going into too much technological detail. One of the big subjects focused on the user, where we really want to give the user real control over their own identity. But to make sure that these technologies are adopted by the users and the citizenship, I mean, if it's not adopted, it serves no purpose. So there's a real issue of security because if the citizens say that the wallets, represent high security, we really have to define what that means. We have to clarify what we mean by high level, what is involved in terms of what's available on the market, and so we have to make sure that that people understand what we mean by high security and how we can guarantee that high security. Obviously, we don't have the same way of defining a digital wallet, so we won't have the same definition of what we mean by high level of security either. So there's a lot of discussions we have at the European level. And to get back to what Eric was saying, I think the real issue here is risk analysis. What are the threats against which we need to protect ourselves? And if the level of guarantee is high, then we have to protect against X, Y, and Z threats. And then we have to put the security measures in place to respond to those threats. And then to go back to the question of with the usages, there's certain usages that will require that the wallet has very high level of security. Let's say, and tomorrow I want to vote with my wallet. I hope that the security level is very high. Otherwise, there's going to be problems. If I have to use the same object for, let's say, to present a right to go to the cinema, for example, I go to a film and I use my wallet, well, maybe we don't need the same high level of security. So the different levels of usage will require different levels of security. So beyond the risk analysis of data, of cyber threats, we also have to do analysis of the usages of these tools. And this is something that really has to go beyond just the European scope, but already we have to look at what each member state considers the important usages and the levels of security for each usage to make sure that the user adopts the wallet, that the wallet is ergonomic and easy and functional to use. So how are you going to implement this high level? What does the high level mean, and how are you going to implement it? What are we talking about really here in practical terms? Well, first, there is a need to give an evaluation to this high-level security. For this, we would need a European certification. So we're looking at with the European Agency of Cybersecurity is working on that. And one of the things that's being planned is that the wallet has to be certified by a European certification system, a CSA of some sort. Now, the other day there was an update of what we call the roadmap of the INCYBER and the European Commission on the construction of the new European directives, and the wallet is one of the subjects that's been identified. So it's very important that we can really build a real trajectory for these technologies at the European level. That takes time, and the real trick will be to harmonize all the rules throughout Europe so that we don't have, confusion. And how is this going to be translated in the practical level? Well, obviously, there's going to be have to be a real architecture that maintains trust and secrecy, and obviously we're in a very mobile environment, and attaching security to a mobile technology is something that's obviously very complex. It's hard to say which applications will function in the future. The European framework says do a framework for security throughout Europe And then we have to, I think the next step will be to realize or analyze the levels of security that are needed and the requirements for this new environment. Eric, maybe you'd like to talk about these usages that, in your opinion, could be dedicated to a high level of security or specific something. First, I'm totally in agreement with what Hugo said. There's a lot of usages where we don't need high security. But there are people who think that everything will be put into the European Digital Identity Wallet. But I think France will keep its own app. I hope that we don't put everything into what we call a single point of failure. But in terms of the usage cases, I like cybersecurity, so let's look at the reference architectures. For example, when you look at payment systems, that's criminals, for example, can empty your bank account very easily. So I think we have to do our own KYC for money laundering, and I hope that at the banking level we have enough guarantees to make sure that the person is the right person. And since we're using a wallet as a vehicle to sort of prove one's identity, the wallet has to be not just something that emits an identity all by itself, but it has to be linked specifically to the wallet, because the wallet is really the tool used to pass the proof of identity. So it has to have a very high level of security. The second thing is when you make a payment, I hope at that level, it's not your wallet that is capable that could empty your bank. If let's say that if you had malware that was put on your phone, your wallet might approve payments while you're sleeping in bed. So I hope that at the wallet level, they have a security level, something which we call in the regulations. Excuse me, I only know the English term for it. So, what we call sole control. So I have to be present and give my PIN code to prove my PIN code, and it's not some remote person who's emptying my bank account while I'm sleeping. Second example, when I take a plane, for example, when you talk about the digital travel conjunction, I hope that the identity of the person is certified with a very high level of reliability, because otherwise there will be a lot of malintentioned people who might be on your plane. Yes, that's clear. So we're going to have this wallet with a high level of security, which we might have different formats, but we'll always have a high level of security, and we'll have additional complementary checks. For example, an identity card or PIN numbers or whatever. Now, will a wallet be a sole tool, a single element of failure, as he called it? I'm sure that the authorities are very well aware of these risks. So what is your opinion? Well, I think we first will look at what the state will define as the some digital identity. So we're looking at what the state is going to come up with, and then we're going to come up with the public services at the post and come up with the guarantees. We've looked at the issue of fraud. Now, we've already done this, with the previous technologies, and now the wallet is arriving, so it's sort of disrupting everything once again. So when you look at the European level, I would say the first thing we look at is all the different acts of execution, like certification, as Hugo mentioned. We also need to see in concrete terms the high levels of security and the regulations must explicitly define what the high level of security is and how to achieve that high level of security. That's something that at this stage is not quite yet understood. So we're waiting for the European texts to be published. And we're also waiting to hear what the national strategy is in terms of digital identity, where we have different levels of sensitivity in terms of usage, which is clear. And we potentially also have complementarity between the state, the business sector, the private sector, the public sector. The idea is to sort of work in complementarity, to work with the state once the nation has defined its strategy for the French citizen and the inhabitants of France in general. Now, to respond to the subjects on which we have perhaps a bit more of a visibility, we talked about the fact that there might be sort of sector-based wallets where there would be for specific purposes, specific industrial uses or something like that, which would be beyond just the European wallet. They wouldn't have the same functions. They don't respond to the same needs. So the question of high-level security might not be as important. Now, if wallet has to be used for everything, including highly sensitive usages, then obviously you will need a high level of security. Now, if you're within a company, an enterprise, an industry, obviously there's a high level of risk for security that I'm sure the company can set the cursor where they feel it's appropriate in terms of the level of security that is necessary. So I think it's really a question of just waiting for these strategies to be defined. Final question. Now that we've talked about the different usage cases, we also have a deadline in terms of the adoption of the European ID wallet. So how can we make sure that all of this is rolled out properly, is adopted properly? And we don't have much time, so 3 years for the under the law, it says 3 years. The public authorities have to accept the use of this this new technology. So. Well, that's a great question. It's a great question also for the European Commission because this is a very, very loaded calendar, to be sure. So it's a very short time period. Let's be clear. It's a very, very short time period to build the legislation, build the secondary legislation, put into place the projects, accelerate the digital transformation for those who are going to use it, and to ensure the security of all of this. Now, the regulations, obviously, if you do the calculations, that means by the end of 2026, pretty much everything has to be in place. Well, that's very, very little time. Now, we're not going to postpone the date now. We're going to try to do as much as we can within that time frame, because if we postpone things today, we won't make progress. So we're going to put the burner at a high fire and. So how are we going to do this? Well, I mean, we have this time constraint, which very clearly does not allow us to work calmly in complete serenity. Now, this serenity is necessary because if we don't work properly on this legislation, or if we don't properly define and precisely define things, then behind this, unfortunately, there will be different interpretations by the different 27 member states, where everybody will have their own way of looking at things and their own implementation of things, and that means that it's not going to work cross-border in any reasonable way. And that defeats the whole purpose. So we have to be able to work together. It goes at the European level. It goes at the European Commission level. We have to be able to try to be as precise as possible. And there's a lot of things that today are not yet precise, but we need to give visibility, as much as visibility as possible, to the various actors. Now, there's industrial actors, there's business partners, business actors who are positioned in this policy, and I don't have a crystal ball to tell you how we're going to do it. All I know is that we have to be ready by the deadline, and we have to move forward to identify and the issues and define them as precisely as possible. And the idea is to get a sort of overview of this. The idea is that by 2030, every European citizen will have access to this digital identification system. And that's what we're aiming for. Romain, maybe you'd like to say a few words on what people are hoping to do by this close deadline. Yes, I think the business sector, the industrial sector is working on this and is contributing in the ways that we just talked about. They're bringing their expertise to help the state to together build this wonderful system with all of the challenges that are being posed by this. But I talked earlier about the fact that we're starting to develop real concrete technologies. We're doing already interoperability tests. There's things that are already being done. So these are not just theoretical levels about how things might work in theory. But if we need to talk about maybe the expectations that we have from the public authorities, is to maybe they should promote the usages at the right level of security for this digital wallet through a proper adoption of the regulations to be defined. That we're moving towards more electronic markets where we maybe be able to make certain usages easier, especially administrative processes. Now, this is the role of the public authorities, is to determine what usages whether it's for public or private uses. For example, banking KYC, do we need a high level of security? Do we need qualified signatures? Do we need qualified justifying documents, etc.? These are things that we see already in a lot of different domains. We see a lot of actors that for lots of reasons, lots of good reasons, have evaluated the risks and are taking the solutions that they believe will resolve their problems. And that means that the wallet, the European digital wallet, will maybe not be able to meet all of the needs. In other words, all of this framework that we're building to create all these different spaces are already being filled by the private sector. So we have to move quickly. Eric, any other approaches that you have identified? I was thinking of XMEEC that has a different model. There are existing solutions in Europe. I'm thinking of Estonia, for example, or Belgium. They have INCYBER. INCYBER is a platform that's very high already and uses a certain technology. The Poles in Poland have done something very powerful based on IDAS version 1 with IDAS V1 certificates. But I think that everybody is trying to run, I don't know how else to say it, they're running to try to come up with something that works in the time frame that's been set out. Now, I'll say something that's maybe, French is not my native tongue, so if I say something that's crazy, I apologize. But these are crazy deadlines. They're nuts. Because if you want to have something that is if we want to have something that's stable and secure by design with all of the protocols, all the implementations, we have to then really do a risk analysis where we can look and to make sure that all the checks and balances are there, where we have privacy preserving by design. We have to make sure that everybody's worked on solutions that obviously these have huge impacts, and it takes time to properly analyze and the impacts can be enormous. Access to your health dossier, access to your e-prescription data, your prescription information, your medication, access to your bank account, et cetera, et cetera. The potential for usage cases it's huge and very positive. I mean, it's very positive usage cases, but if we don't do it well, the danger is enormous also, and the risk at European level. If you look at the European interoperability framework, to have something that's operable, safe, secure, and secure by design, are we there yet? In terms of the regulations, no, we're not there yet because we're still writing them. The second level, governance, are the processes for certification and for supervision of new services of trust. As incident management and breach management and semantic interoperability. For example, if I am in Belgium and I go to a French bank, or let's say I want to connect with the French Social Security system because I work cross-border, do we have this semantic interoperability? Do we have it or not? No, we still have to work on it. So in terms of protocols, where you have standard exchanges to make sure that all the relying parties throughout Europe know how to process the data that they're going to receive. We're still working on all this. And at the end of the day, what's at the center of all of this? Well, have we properly analyzed the security of the wallet, the software, the secure element that's in it? No. We're currently doing all of this at the same time. Now, we have to do it, that's clear. The dream is a good dream, but the added value is enormous if we're able to do it properly. But the deadline is very short. Yes, the stakes are high, colossal. The impact in terms of usage, we can see that it's going to change everything. The work that has to be done to put into place this wallet, to put into place this whole trust ecosystem, it's going to be very, very heavy. And we can see it with our customers. We see the anticipation ahead of this transformation, and to see how the institutions will work in the future, how they'll be able to change their processes, how they work, how they process documents, and yet to keep a way of managing all the different cases. For example, citizens who have wallets, citizens who don't have wallets, customers who have wallets, customers who don't have wallets. You have the whole economic issue, the whole administrative issues. All of this is going to happen in the next 3 to 10 years. And so thank you to the three of you. I think we have the time now for a few questions. First, a big thank you, because it was very interesting. And thank you for helping us to discover all these issues. But before asking my question, my first reaction is we can see that first we have to sell this project for a European digital wallet with all of its promises of security, of protection of private life, and promises of interoperability. But we can see that you're already working on the secondary legislation and the technical norms and standards, and we can see all the difficulties in these issues. But my question is, we can see that there is a very strong promise regarding the adoption because the European Commission wants 80% of citizens will be using this wallet by 2030. So what are the levers that you have at your disposal to promote this wallet? I know we have the attestations, testimonials, certifications. I can tell that for the citizen, it's very, very useful. It's going to be practical to be able, with 2 or 3 clicks, to be able to attest or certify. So is there going to be any sort of promotion to push the adoption of this, or are we still at the pilot stage? I could maybe give a sort of vision of the future. It's not the INC that's working on the digital identification system in Europe, or in France, but there's other agencies doing that. But the ADAS V2 regulations state that each member state has the obligation to propose at least one digital wallet. The user is not obliged to use it, but if you look at all the different usages that you have, let's say if this technology respects my private life, respects my private data, and really makes my life easier, then it's a great promise. It's fantastic. So I think the reality is good. I think it's that's not the question. But the question is, how can we favor adoption? Well, I think that we're not going to be able to cover all the usages all at once. That's where the administration, with the different business actors, private actors, will promote the adoption of this wallet by making life easier for users. Now, security, mobility, these are issues that we need to basically focus on. There's also usages that the administration is not involved in, but might be interesting, as Eric says. So there's a certain number of usages that might help everyone's daily life, you know, for cross-border citizens, for example. And I think that's the idea of some of the pilot usage cases that the European Commission launched recently. And I think it really, while we continue to look and focus on securing privacy, and it's important to remember that we're not building everything from scratch all at once. So we're basing the current technologies on foundations that are already well founded from the past, and so the idea is to look at in the wallet how we can adopt this through all the different sectors, not just the banking sector or the administration, but I think we have to have real concrete examples of how this wallet can be used in a positive way by users, and I think that will help promote it. I also had the good fortune to do the blueprint of the electronic Belgian identity card in the year 2000, and I was very impatient. I couldn't understand why people didn't use it. Now, it's true, it takes a little bit of time until people accept new elements in their lives that they can use. But certain processes obviously will take a lot less time. Once people start using them, they realize how great it is. So I don't think there's a magic bullet to say this usage case is going to solve all your problems. But if you want to travel throughout Europe, for example, or you need medications in a pharmacy in Spain or somewhere else, it goes a lot easier, a lot faster with a digital identification system. Or let's say you want to loan a car or a bike. You know, it's very easy to do this if you have a cross-border digital identification system. Or you want to open a new business. I mean, and all the administration is a lot faster. Then I think people are going to start using it when they realize how fun and easy it is to use. They're going to use it. Thank you.
Pour compléter,
Maybe as a complement to what Hugo said, the fact that everyone will get a wallet, what is provided by EIDAS V2 is that a certain number of identities will have to accept wallet. So it's a promotion by constraint, because the public sector will have to accept it. Private companies, except for the very small ones, will have to accept it. And the large online platforms, GAFAM and TikTok and others will have to accept it to identify or authenticate users. So we have a large ecosystem. I'm a European citizenship. I have a wallet. I have someone who accepts it. So I'll be tempted to use it if it has additional features I cannot manage any other way. So as part of the LSPs, and we're talking about use cases, is it going to reduce fraud? Yes, no. In certain cases, yes. Is it cheaper? I'm not a specialist of the banking system, but KYC for the banking system is expensive. Maybe it'd be cheaper to rely on a wallet. Sorry. Is it good in terms of image for my service? And above all, and in line with what we mentioned earlier on, do we have the regulatory obligation to use the wallet for such a use at such a level? There'll be an extremely significant lever. So, Stéphane Millegem, Consulting, a comment maybe for Eric and a question for everyone. Eric, you mentioned the possibility or the interest of the high level of guarantee for payment. Honestly, I doubt it very much. And we'll probably talk about these topics as part of this afternoon's roundtable. But the future ALM regulation, which is being finalized at European level, defines the substantial level as being, and not the high level, as the reference level for the contacts in the banking sector, and generally speaking, for entering into contacts with the anti-money laundering players. So I have a doubt whether there are payment usage outside specific cases a high level. And the question is, we haven't actually talked about trusted services as part of IDS 2. There is one modification, and the fact that the qualified trusted services need a high-level checking of identity, don't you think it's going to be too much of a constraint? And the risk is that we're going to find ourselves in a situation that we have known in France since the beginning of the year 2000, is that we have regulation that provides, for example, that in terms of electronic signature, that provided qualified electronic signature that was never developed because it was too much of a constraint in the most common use. Well, we could talk hours on end on these topics, but I'd say that we must avoid having a race to the bottom that reduce each time the level of security. If we look at the world around us, it doesn't become quieter at all. But on the contrary, we have geopolitical situations that are very negative at the moment. I understand what you are saying in terms of ILM and so on, but I think that there is somewhat of a danger of putting the level too low at a certain time. It's a risk acceptance issue of DG FISMA, European banking authorities, and so on, and even the banks themselves, to say, if we trust at such a level of guarantee of the identity, rather than having a true passport or ID card, it's all about risks. So we have to take that into account, and the lawmakers are going to set a minimum at a certain place, and we shall see how many cases of fraud or not. But let's not forget that banks have fraud detecting systems that will look into what users who has just opened a bank account is doing, so they can compensate for that, while outside the banking sector, there is no fraud detection standards. So I'm wondering what is going to happen there. So it's risk management to see whether we can offset with the fraud management systems. Now, in terms of qualified trusted providers, again, I would say it depends on the use cases. What is the loss you can have if we trust a lower level of a supporting document? For certain documents, like your library card, having a qualified certificate is over the top. But other cases, for example, digital travel credentials and others, would require a certificate that has been issued with a certain level of certainty. If you allow me also to give my vision and answer both questions, whether in terms of the expected security level in the banking with a high-level wallet and the trusted services. What you should understand, there is a logic. If it can meet the high level, then you can meet the lower level. Now the question is, will it be in a capacity to answer that? And so it's a matter of user-friendliness and whether the banking sector is interested in using it. Once you've said that for the finance sector you need substantial level, it doesn't answer the question, because we can see that we are raising 1,000 questions of what a high level is. Once you say substantial level, we have the same questions. So I don't follow these topics in particular, but I think that there is a true topic of what we want to protect ourselves against and what kind of solution we have to face that. Now, to be clear, in France, for wallet, for a long time we've been defending the idea of having a wallet that could work with different levels of guarantees that could, depending on the use, be on a certain level, and if it's a very sensitive usage, be on a high level, which is something we can obtain. There are divergences on the member states on this understanding, and of course, for the adoption of users, there is a desire at European scale to display the high level. So I think that we shall see what will happen. It's difficult to say today whether the wallet is going to be used by the finance sector or not, but they have the obligation to accept it. Now, I think that, as usual, they will have other solutions that be offered. We mentioned electronic signature. There are some identity checking services. Many things are offered in the KYC. As long as the necessary security is there and it meets a use case, it avoids the single point of failure, as mentioned before. So for the trusted services, it's more. There's Article 24 that was actually existed in IDAS v1 that was updated in IDAS v2 that specifies what are the service providers, the service provision for checking the. We know it will be high level or security. One, there is the effort that should be made on solutions that suppose high level of confidence. So we've put a new name in the regulation, is high level of confidence. That's the exact term. So imagine that it raises a number of questions. These questions are dealt with in standardization bodies. 18, in this case, where we try to raise the questions on this. Once you've said the high level of confidence, that's okay, but what does it mean in terms of technique? So we don't have the answers for that. We have the regulatory framework, and these are the weeks and months to come that will provide visibility on that. Thank you for the explanations. Actually, it gives me a part of my answer. It's concerning the governance of data, the sovereignty of data. You talked about a high level of security and sovereignty, I imagine. So will Secnum Cloud be one of the standards to protect against the extraterritorial laws? Because today, if we go through apps, we are imposed a number of constraints, like Certicode Plus and so on. I didn't activate it because I don't want to be blocked and locked into an ecosystem. If I have to go through Google and Android to go through my bank, that raises an issue of sovereignty. And if I have to go through Apple, again, we are on extraterritoriality. Well, if you allow me to start an answer, this is the core of the matter, actually, because to talk about sovereignty, if we talk about France, we have industrial players that are IDAS and IDAS v1. We have something regarding which is electronic national identity card, on which France TIT was relying to have electronic identification. So we have a layer of sovereignty on that, and we see how it's converting to the wallet. Now the question it raises is that there's a desire from the European Commission is that they have a mobile app, and they can do a number of things. Now it does raise a real question of sovereignty. If globally we want to do things in the telephone, we are dependent on the people who manage Android and iOS. So there's a true question that we, as member states, have a capacity to provision some secured app and not be dependent on these players. So it's a true issue, not at national level, it is at European level. So there is a consideration that we like, is that explains that globally we have to rely on mobile phones while certified elements are in the telephone at the right level, and once they're available. It's not certified at the right level, which is an issue. We've been in capacity to do that. It's not a chip card, but we can certify the element of security in the telephone. The question is available. Available means that I'm not dependent from Google and Apple to provision something and maintain it and do what I like. It is not the case today. There's a true issue here. It links onto another law about the Digital Market Act, the DMA. There's a true question of knowing whether the question of sovereignty on mobile telephony. Will Europe be in a capacity to impose to these players the fact that you have a space on identity regarding topics that is available to the European sector? And to be honest with you, we don't have the answers to this question, but it's a true challenge in terms of sovereignty and security. This is where the challenge is. Will we be in a capacity to force these players, which is something we haven't been able to do up to now? And if it is, it'll be a real success. If we manage tomorrow to provision some secured applets in the security, then we're not dependent on these players to update them, modify them, remove them, and so on. Well, it's not even administration, it's for industrial players who want provision things in there. It'd be interesting not only in a wallet context, but it could be interesting for many other contexts. So we are talking about secured mobile telephony than anything else. And the Commission has laid a foundation, and it's great to be able to talk to that. Because if ANSI could vary the version of Android, so this means that Google have to provide the source code, and we don't know what to do with that. There's not only Pegasus, you have the American government and so on. I can only share an opinion, yes. I don't have the answer to this today, but what I can tell you is that the European will, we say we'll never do it if it's certified and available, but we need to have something that specifies what this means, certified and available. There's a true questions to see with these players, and this is where the core of the matter is. To complement on this aspect of sovereignty and widen looking away from the wallets, we talk about those service providers issuing certificates and supporting documents. We'll have identities that will be allowed to ask for information and confirmation to public registers, and that will issue income certificates, potentially health data that will process all the data that has to do with your professional or private life. And there's sovereignty is at stake here, and they will not be solved by regulation. We can only write that we only want French or European actors, players on that. We're not allowed to do that. But there's a true challenge that the public sector and industrialists should seize, to have European champions that can operate these services on platforms that are operated in places that are trusted, with people that we trust, to process this data and provide a service to European residents without any worries or doubts about the alternatives or leaks that we can have for this data. Thank you very much. I think that we got to the end of this roundtable. So further questions can be asked later on, I'm sure. A big thank you to all three of you, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.